Okay, everyone, we'll get going here. Just want to introduce myself. My name is Dan Tracy. I have been using MetalTrax for a few years now and very familiar with our barcoding system. And I want to just introduce you guys to it. I give you an idea of what it can bring to your company, what you can use it for. It's going to be very informal. You know what? Let me know, holler out if you got a question as we go. I plan on it lasting about 30 minutes, and then we'll be done. I'll hang around for some questions. But I'm also recording the session, so we'll be able to post it afterwards. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get going. As I said, my name is Dan Tracy. I've been in IT and management for a while. I've been in the metal industry for a long time. And it's been over 5 years now I've been using MetalTrax. My goal by the end of this short half hour is to get you to understand how the barcode scanning works, how it flows, and what it can do to you, what it can bring to your company. So, get started here. Basically, you've got to begin with the foundation. The foundation being creating users. Within those users, you can create a costing module with it. You can identify the shift the personnel are on. We'll just kind of look at that really quick. When I'm looking at some users, what I referred to as a wage, we've used a shop rate in the past, and you'll see where that comes in at a later time. A shift indication, what shift they're working, you can report on by shift, do some productivity reporting. So that kind of gives you a real quick how do you do of what needs to be created for the individuals to log in and to be able to use the system. With that being said, the main medium for scanning these barcodes would be, you could use tethered barcode scanners, wireless barcode scanners. Even as a plan B, we fall back to using a browser to bring up the same thing the barcode scanning guns would see. It's a little hard to demonstrate the barcode scanning guns being on a webinar, but there's multiple, I've used multiple kinds of barcode scanning guns. Some of the different models, an MC9090 is a symbol, 3190. Lots of different ones. Costs vary on these. Costs will vary from, I've paid $1,500 a piece, I've paid $400, depending on what you're looking for. I haven't had a compatibility issue. There is a list out there of what has been deemed compatible, and if you decide to go down that road, definitely can get you that list. So one of the main things that with this system is how, I'm going to say how flexible it can be. It can accommodate many different things, and I can't say there's a right way and a wrong way to set it up. You have to set it up how it benefits you. Just prior to the meeting, I set up a status code, and that status code was for the webinar. So I don't have an order. I'm just going to quickly show you what I set up here. One thing you need to have running is we'll cover this. This is the listener. Everything talks back to the listener. There's some configuration options here. You know, require a login. You're going to want to require login to be able to track individuals. But all the devices, the guns, the web browsers, everything points back to this listener. Hence when I had that running, I shut the listener down, and I did not have anything to log into. Just showing you here. So you don't have to remember this, but I created a start webinar. So I want to keep track. I'm Danny P. I'm logged in. I want to keep track of what I'm doing on a daily basis. I'm going to say, okay, I started the webinar. And that gets added to my time card. Something we'll go over more. I just wanted to show you how you can customize it to best suit what you're looking for. Some other ways are, I'll go back there quick. Some other ways are, and I put, this is a brand new set of data, so I put some things in there. If you're pulling sheet orders, if you're going on break, if you're doing some laser cutting, you know, depending on what your business is doing and what you want to track, you could put in here, I want to know when somebody's cleaning. I want to know when they're on break. I want to know when they take lunch. You could get it down to that fine of auditing of a person's time. So anyway, I started the webinar here. Again, in this I wasn't going to touch on this, but the listener has to be running. I had shut MetalTrax down, so it stopped running. I need to start it up again. It's not complicated to start it up. The person just needs access to it. In the menu, you hit start and it runs. I can't tell you the last time I've had an issue with the listener having any kind of burp or ever going down without somebody shutting something off. It's been extremely reliable. So they've done a really good job in making that reliable. Okay, so what everybody's here for is the orders. So I'm holding on to a barcode scanner. And I want to see, I'm going to print out an order here quick. Okay, it's on credit hold. That's all right. Again, it's a little difficult to show you the actual scanning function, but you'll understand from this. So this is a picking list that goes out to the warehouse for picking. It lists material. It may just be material, depending on your business, what you do. I also have a line of here of shearing this material down. So I have two lines here, line 1 and 1.01. 1.01 is the process of shearing. I'm going to track both of these. I want to know how long it took to pull that order. I want to know how long it took them to shear that. I find that information in the reporting. I got to close that. There we go. I'll pull this sales order status report. And I honestly don't know how many people are familiar with it, how many people are currently using it. I'm going to bring up all the orders. There's some limited data here that I've been entering over the last few days to make sure we had something to look at. Okay, so that order number was order number 6. This looks a little bit cumbersome when you first see it. I'm going to rearrange some columns here. A little bit cumbersome, maybe a little bit intimidating. One thing you can do is, if I want to narrow it down by an operator, I can narrow it down by an operator to know what that operator's been doing. You know, last thing I have is on the 10th here that Danny P started on a webinar at 2:09. Prior to that, he was on break for an awful long time. That order that we looked at, I just want you to be comfortable with the filters. That sales order we looked at was sales order number 6. That was one that I printed up on the screen. It shows by line what was done with this. Now the reason there's 4 lines here is, remember, the sales order had 2 lines, and there are 2 people that have actually punched in to doing this order, scanned into doing this order. So sales order number 6, I want to bring that up one more time so we can see this. And again, if you guys have any questions, please go ahead and holler, stop me, whatever you have to do, get my attention. That order is 1,000 pounds. Go back to my sales order status report. You notice here it's 500 pounds. And the reason for that is there were 2 people. Danny P was plugged into that order, and so was Dan T. They both clocked into it. They both spent 39 minutes on it. And so, although it kept the time, it only gave them credit for half of the order because they were both working on it. And where this comes into play for me is if I'm reporting pounds, it doesn't give me skewed information, where if it said, okay, well, Danny P was plugged in here, he should have gotten 1,000 pounds, and so should have Dan T. Well, then I just doubled my output, when that's not reality. And this formula that does this, let's say it's 1,000 pounds, and they're not punched into it equally. We'll say Danny P does 2/3 of it time-wise, and Dan T only does 1/3. It'll break that down. It'll say, well, Dan T only gets 333 pounds because he was only punched in for 1/3 of it, and Danny P will get the other 666 pounds. So it's a good way if you have people, more than one person working on an order, a very good way to keep track of who's doing what. Come review time, you could print out 6 months worth of data. Whatever you needed to, you could chart it. We'll go through adding that really quickly to Excel. But the reporting function is very important. And I wanted you to be comfortable with what it can do in this webinar. That was line 1. Line 1.01, if you remember, was the shearing. After they got done with it, 8:39 to 8:52, they took time to shear it. And it looks like here that Dan T on that order took a lot more time. So Danny P got pulled off for whatever reason. He only spent 13 minutes on it. Dan T spent 232.5 minutes on it. So you come over to, if you're trying to track productivity, and there's other ways to do this. Like I said, this is configurable. Just because I'm showing you this way doesn't mean it necessarily has to be that way. It's just one way that it's been done. Because of the time difference, it shows that he sheared 53 pounds and he sheared 947. And obviously, if there was just one person working on it, there would be no overlap in time. That person would get credit for that whole order if they finished it and marked it complete. So, kind of gives you an idea of some of the reporting. This tracking is very important. These filters, they can be changed, modified with some, some work involved, but you can look at various things. I want to know what Dan T's been up to. I'm going to pick Dan T out of here, and I'm going to see the orders that Dan T has been working on. It's going to give you a total. There's 20,000 pounds and 500 pounds. Dan T did 20,500. This was a different item. This was a process. So it didn't include that in that total. But it gives you an idea. Back earlier, if you were watching, when I created an individual, I had a dollar amount associated with that individual, considered a shop rate. Well, that shop rate basically gives you the labor dollars for that order. So if I'm looking for a particular order, and we'll use 6 for this. If I'm looking for a cost of labor that I've gone through on that order that Dan T put into this one, I've got $65 and $387. Gives me an idea for costing to know what that dollar value is with that order. And then obviously you've got your material with that. So I could, if this was an issue where we were doing some laser cutting, I also have laser cutting in there. Again, it would be as simple as changing the wage for the laser cutting to keep track of that in time. And I gotta get off Dan T here. And this is, this again is everybody, open and closed, whether it's not been invoiced yet or not. You can also do an all. The wider you bring those filters, the more data it pulls up, so it takes a little bit longer sometimes. You haven't narrowed it down. I guess everything I put in for an example here, I was using shear for the simplicity of it. And we can go through a different scenario if somebody wants to do that also. Go through some of the columns here.
Dan, this is Scott Gerlinger here. Can you hear me?
You bet, Scott.
Are there any protections? Say the order is already closed. Is there any way when they're using their barcode scanner that it will let them know that it's closed prior to them trying to clock in and do more work for some reason, in case there's some sort of either a glitch in paperwork or if the system itself does some sort of a glitch? Or will it let them clock right in even though the order is closed?
Scott, I think it will let them clock in.
Gotcha.
When it's closed. But I could verify that too. Just writing that question down.
Thank you.
I believe it will. I encourage the guys that are using this, if they, when they're scanning an order, and we'll go into scanning one here. Kind of jumped ahead of myself, but we'll go into how they scan it. I encourage them, if they make a mistake when they're scanning, and this may not be a mistake that they know they're making, but say they scan in on the wrong order, I encourage them to just go on to the next order that they were supposed to scan into and scan, because you can go back as an administrator of the system here. You have the ability to go in and delete one of these rows. So this row here, if this was a mistake, I'm going to go in and I'm just going to delete that record, because I know he went in and he actually scanned in the right way.
Got it.
I'm going to go quickly over to how these guys are scanning. I couldn't figure out how to get a barcode scanner online, but so here's what we're doing. We're using, this is the screen that they would see. And when they log into their barcode gun, these are all the different choices that they have. And some of you may be familiar with using some of these. I have the people that I train, I have them use the time card. When they log into the time card, it tells them what they've done for the day thus far. It gives them an order number. So here's where they're going to scan in an order number. So they're holding the scan gun. They've got a order in front of them. We'll throw this one up on the screen again. So they're holding this piece of paper with this order on it. I've always had processes. If I'm the person that's pulling that order, obviously I've got the piece of paper. If I'm the one that's pulling that order, this is my barcode that I'm going to scan. For line 1, I'm pulling 1,000 pounds. I'm going to scan that code. And I'm going to emulate the scanner here, but it's going to go in and go, okay, I brought the order up. It's 1,000 pounds of 10 gauge. And I'm going to start that order. Now, they can also scan this status. They currently can select it from the drop-down, or they can scan it. You can print out a page of all the status barcodes, hang it on a forklift, hang it by the computers, what have you, that they can scan that barcode. I'm impartial to just selecting it. So I want to start that sheet order. And it shows me at 2:30. This is in 15-minute increments. The reporting, as you saw, is right down to the minute. This is just kind of a broader view of that, but you see that he was starting that sheet order at that time. And again, they can see it's stainless steel 10 gauge, 1,000 pounds. So now he's scanned into that order. If I wanted to look at that order, let's say I'm a salesman that wants to know where my order is. The salesmen themselves could go in and the salesmen themselves I've got it limited a little bit here. It's going to run through the records. I just selected open, so it's a smaller record set to look at. But if I'm a salesman wondering where my order is, and I can pick that order out of here, I can see that, okay, I've used the same order over and over, so that's why it's got a bunch of, I'll just call it garbly-gook. But I can see that Dan T at 2:24 grabbed this order, and he started to fill it. So I know that's where that order is. And that's where this system becomes very easy to customize. If I want these guys, when they're done with an order, and I want to know where the next location for that order is, I can make that a status. So let's say when the sheet order was done, it was going to get cut on a laser. He's done with the sheet order. He's going to scan out of the sheet order. The next step he's going to do when he brings it physically over to the laser, he's going to scan in and say at laser. So if I'm the salesman again going in looking at this order, customer wants to know when they can expect it, salesman can get a good idea that, okay, well, it's at the laser today. That's the last step. You can get it as fine of auditing as you want. If you want to put in a step, okay, laser at deburring, at packaging, on truck, you can get that fine. Granted, you rely on the individuals to do the scanning, but you really make it as complex or as simple as you need it to be. The ability to teach these guys to scan is when they're looking at that sales order, it's point and click. It's point and click and select that barcode.
Dan, I'm sorry, this is Scott.
Yep.
One more quick question.
You bet.
You mentioned that we would be able to scan the status codes themselves instead of having them selected necessarily. Is there a way that that we could program our pull tag to have the relevant scan codes on it? For instance, my order only has shearing and then maybe some laser work on it. Can it only print those scan codes out so I don't either have to have a list lying around or rely on them to select the appropriate status.
Select the right 2 out of possibly 20 hanging out there. Is that what you're asking?
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm not going to say it's not possible, because from what this started to what it's become, we've done a lot of modifications to it to make it better.
And this is Kelly. Can I answer that one?
You bet.
Okay. If Scott wanted to program, a custom report that just had those barcodes for 2 processes on it, that would be an easy thing for Greg to program on, so that his particular pick list had those 2 barcodes down the bottom or something where people could just scan those 2.
Perfect. That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. So it is possible. Like I say, there's a lot of customization that can happen that'll make it easier for you to use. And a lot of it's just within the MetalTrax menus that you're able to create statuses. It takes seconds. It took me 30 seconds to create one that said beginning webinar, so that when I looked at Dan T's time card, I can see he's at the webinar. Different things like that. Part 2 of this is now when this gentleman's out holding this and he's going to start shearing. Again, all this is his order number. He's going to scan it. And we're going to use the other gentleman here. I'll go back to the back here, and order number 6 is the order that I'm working on. I scanned that order, and this again is emulating the scan gun. Is going to bring up the 1.01. They don't have to hit enter, anything just pops in for them, and they're going to begin laser cutting on that order. Again, it tells them, or no, there's a conflicting statement there, but the status I put was laser cutting. The line when I created the sales order said shearing. That's my mistake. That I didn't see there was a cutting line and I missed it and put shearing in there. When they look at the report again, it's just to refresh that. I'll look at specifically sales order number 6. I know that, again, I've used this one numerous times, but to know that there is laser cuttings beginning 2:30. When that's finished, then it'll fill in the pieces, the pounds, and the time for you. If they do not scan at least 1 minute worth, it just considers it null. I've had gentlemen that forget to do the scanning, and they try to do them both at the same time. They start an order and finish an order immediately. They don't get credit for it. Credit, for some of these competitive guys is very important. So something to remind them. It helps them get in that memory muscle of scanning an order every time when they're using it. So we've done the scanning. We've looked at the reporting process. The only thing we haven't done is put it in Excel. It easily will go into Excel, and what we do with it is we export it to Excel, and then we take totals for each individual, and we chart them on Excel, and then put in a medium for whether they're getting better or they're getting worse. If I have Excel open, let me close down a few here. I have Excel open. If I wanted to look at operator Danny P, All I have to do is right click on it, export the visible cells to Excel. And all that information went into this Excel spreadsheet. From there, you can do what you want to do with it. Like I say, we've used totals to graph productivity of an individual, how they're doing. They like to see it. You know, it does become a competitive mechanism for them out there to know, you know, when you get to order pullers, to know that so-and-so pulled 10 pieces, 1,000 pounds, and the other guy pulled 50 pieces of 5,000 pounds. So it helps make a little competition out of it also. I didn't want to go really too in depth about it. I wanted to give you an idea. I've used it for a long time. I'm a very supportive of the program. I think it can really help you out with some things that are tough to track without, you know, pen and paper and somebody going through every order, things like that. So with that, we're about 35 minutes into it. I'd like to wrap it up. You guys got an invitation that has an email in it. Kelly's been extremely helpful. If you have any questions or want to see more, you know, let me know. I've got a question here from Scott that I'll check into and figure out an answer and see what we can do about that. But if anybody else has any questions or anything, now'll be a time to bring them up. Otherwise, if you want to reach out to me later, that's fine too. Kelly, did you, anything that you want to add?
Not right now. They're welcome to email me as well if they lose your email address or something, and if I can't answer it, I'll forward them on to you. I appreciate you doing it. And you said that you have recorded this, so if anybody's interested in getting a recording of it, they can also contact me and I'll get it to them after you have it ready.
You bet. You bet. Well, I hope it didn't add any confusion. I hope it explained things, what needs to be, you know, things that need to be considered. Again, I can't stress enough, customize it to how you want to use it. And I think you'd get a pretty good return on it.
Hey, Dan,
With that being said,
since no one else seems to be asking questions, I feel less guilty for dominating the floor. Final question for you before we go.
Yes.
The HTTP listener, does that have to be turned on any workstation that may be using barcoding, or can that just be turned on the server where my database resides for my 40 users?
Turn it on the server where it could run on any machine that's running MetalTrax. I run it on the shop floor, and I used to run it on the server, but if it had any issues or something that stopped working, they couldn't start it again without me. So I run it on the shop floor on one of the computers, and these guys are instructed. They know how to test if it's running, if they have a problem with the gun, and they can start it up on that machine. So you can start on any machine, one machine, everything points to that one IP address or DNS name of that computer.
Got it. That's what I needed to know. Thank you, sir.
No problem. Okay, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to hear me out, and like I say, any questions, let me know, or Kelly. I'll do everything I can to get you the answer as soon as I can.
Thanks for your time, Dan. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording. I want you guys to have a good day.
Okay. Bye, everybody.